So Jai Bhim and Namo Buddhaya to you all.
Jai Bhim, sir.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So as we are studying this very important book of the Buddha and Dhamma, the book 4, and in the book 4, we are studying what is called the Buddhist way of life, the part 3. And in that, we have covered quite a lot of ground. And we have seen that there are about 13 subsections to that, and we have covered eight subsections. And today we are going to look at this subsection 9, which is titled as on vigilance, earnestness, and boldness. So that is going to be the sub-part that we are going to discuss today. And it's a part of the Buddhist way of life, which means that here Baba Sahib Ambedkar has tried to put before us the what constitute the Buddhist way of life. So in a way, this is a very significant part. And we have seen many dimensions of this Buddhist path before, at least 8 different dimensions of it. And today we are going to study, as I read in the title, on vigilance, earnestness, and boldness. It's a very, compared to the other subparts, it's not long one. It constitutes about 9 verses. And these 9 verses, they are, as we have seen before, that they are mostly drawn from the Dhammapad and other sections of the Tripitaka. But here, if we look at this particular section, it's all about showing that Buddhist way of life is not a passive way of life. Generally the Buddhism is looked at as a path which has which is a path of peace and silence and so on and so forth, which is of course true, that Buddhism is of course a path of peace and silence. But Buddhism is not passive, and Buddhism is very active in terms of the way of life. The Buddha, if we look at even the image of the Buddha, though we see him sitting cross-legged and in meditation, but if we study the biography of the Buddha, we see that the Buddha was very active. He was very actively involved in the world, and this is very clearly communicated in this subpart 9. So as always with this part of the Buddha and his Dhamma, I'm going to begin to read it through and through, and then I'm going to go back to the various verses and we'll reflect on some of the verses to make us realize the depth and the importance of the verses that Baba Sahib Ambedkar has chosen here. So I begin to read verse number 1. When vigilant, the wise man puts from him negligence. Ascending the tower of wisdom, he looks down, free from sorrow, upon the sorrow-laden race of mankind, as from a mountain top, the wise man looks upon the fools in the valley. 2. Vigilant among the negligent, awake among those asleep, as a fleet courser leaves behind a sorry nag, so go the wise. Give not yourself unto negligence, have not to do with the lust of flesh. The vigilant is given to meditation. 4. Earnestness leads to where death is not. Heedlessness is the way to death. Those who continue in earnestness do not die, but the heedless are as if already dead. Fall not away from your purpose for the sake of another. However great this latter may be, when once you have seen your goal, hold it firm and fast. The verse number 6 goes like this: be watchful, have done with indolence, travel the true path. Whoso walks thereon happy, he lives in the world. Verse number 7: idleness is a disgrace, constant sloth is defilement. By strenuous striving and with the help of insight, you should pull out the poisoned arrow of indolence. 8. Give not yourself unto negligence. Have not to do with the lust of the flesh. The vigilant, the given to meditation, these attain an overflowing happiness. 9. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to Dhamma, his glory will increase. You see, these are just 9 verses, but these 9 verses are very important, like all other verses that we have been studying in this section. But here the emphasis is mostly on uh, how to become vigilant, how to become earnest, and how to become bold. And we have seen all these 3 virtues reflecting in the previous subsection that we have studied. But here, as the verse number 1 goes, when the vigilant, the wise man puts from him negligence. Now you see, the most of the times we are living our lives with negligence. We are not paying heed to very many areas of our life, and we generally waste a lot of our time, our energies on the things which are not important for us to ascend to what is what Baba Sahib Ambedkar has given a very beautiful phrase here: ascending the tower of wisdom. So if we want to attain or ascend to the tower of wisdom, I think this is a very very clear and concrete image of a tower of wisdom. And reaching up on the top of the tower of wisdom is not an easy task. If we are neglectful, if we are not vigilant, if we are not earnest, we cannot ascend the tower of wisdom. So let's keep this image in our minds of a tower of wisdom. And it's very clear that if we want to ascend something very high, if we are negligent, there is a danger of falling down. And if we want to ascend higher, we have to make efforts. We have to, in other words, strive very hard. We have to be very vigilant. So the vigilant or vigilance here is has a connotation in Pali with a word called apramad. And there is the Amak, the Dhammapad has, I think, the Vagga 2, which is titled itself as vigilance or heedlessness, heedfulness, or what is called in Pali apramad. And we have seen in the previous classes as to how this word apramad and pramad comes together. Pramad is indolence, it's laziness, it's being negligent, it's being not watchful. So this apramad has a broader connotation, because if we look at this word apramad, this is such a profound word in Buddhism that when the Buddha attained to Mahaparinirvan, the Buddha has used this word appamada, where the Buddha says that where Dhamma sankhara appamadena sampadeta. Appamadena means diligent, vigilant, being bold. So this word, what is called appamada, has got a very deep significance in Buddhism, and in fact, we will see in this subsection as to how this word appamad is linked to the nirvana itself. So without striving, without being watchful, without being mindful, without reflecting, without meditating, without having that steady focus of mind, we cannot attain to nirvana. And therefore, I think it's very important for us to understand very clearly that the word vigilance or earnestness or the word boldness has a deep connotation in Buddhism in terms of the nirvana. So I'm going to read this again, the verse number 1. When vigilant, the wise man puts from him negligence, ascending the tower of wisdom, he looks down. So, the image here is to ascend the tower of wisdom, and from there looking down. The person who has ascended the tower of wisdom is free from sorrow. He himself is free from sorrow, but he looks upon the sorrow-laden race of mankind. So it's very clear that once we attain to wisdom, the suffering or the dukkha is completely gone. There is no dukkha for a wise person, because the wise person has seen the way it is. And the second image is also very clear. As from a mountain top, the wise man looks upon the fools in the valley. So as we go on the mountain top, we can look down upon the valley and we see the fools in the valley. Now, let's not do much with the concept of wise and fools. This is the way of teaching as to, if we are fools, if we are negligent, if we are not, making efforts, then we can be likened or compared with the fools, because we are squandering our precious lives. And a wise person is always making efforts. They are trying to ascend to the tower of wisdom. Now, the verse number 2 is the amplification of what has been taught in the verse number 1. Second, vigilant among the negligent. So how is the Buddhist way of life? How do we construe the Buddhist way of life? How do we understand the Buddhist way of life? It's very beautifully spoken here. Vigilant among the negligent. The world might be negligent. The world might be completely irresponsible. The world might be completely going in a direction of the foolishness or suffering. The Buddhist person needs to be vigilant among the negligent, awake among those sleep. So those people who are in the deep slumber, a Buddhist person, the way of life of a Buddhist person is not to, fall in that slumber, not to fall asleep, but to be awake among those asleep. As a fleet courser leaves behind a sorry nag. If a fleet has to go further, it has to leave behind the sorry nag. Just like that, if we want to make progress in our lives, we have to throw a lot of useless things. And the Buddha has given a very beautiful image in one of the sutras, where Buddha says, and it is included in the Buddha and his Dhamma. Baba Ambedkar has brought this beautiful image that, like we are traveling in a boat and the boat is overloaded with so many objects which are useless. The speed of the boat will reduce. It might happen that the boat might sink down. So if we want to hasten our speed towards the other shore of nirvana, we have to throw a lot of this, what is called the baggages. We have to throw a lot of additional things which are not useful to us. And we all know that we are carrying a lot of useless ideas, useless attachments in our minds. And as long as we are attached to so many things in the world, we cannot go in the direction of the nirvana full speed. Therefore, there is a very beautiful gatha that Baba Ambedkar has included in the Buddha and his Dhamma about throwing those useless things which are not beneficial to us at all. So you see, this verse number 2 is the amplification of the verse number 1. Vigilant among the negligent, awake among those asleep, and as a fleet courser leaves behind a sorry nag, so go the wise. Now, verse number 3 is a amplification on the same thing. Give not yourself unto negligence. You see, the importance of being vigilant is so much emphasized in the Buddha and his Dhamma all the time. Baba Ambedkar is making this, making it clear to all of us that Buddhism is not the path of negligence. Buddhism is a path of vigilance. Buddhism is path of being watchful. Buddhism is a path of being earnest. Buddhism is being path of being bold. So you see all these beautiful images come together in this section. So verse number 3 goes like this: give not yourself unto negligence. At no cost we should be able to give ourselves unto negligence. How not to do with the lust of flesh. You see, if we bring together all these terminologies of that the Buddha used, and reflect them again and again, and we can see that they are all related to the same sort of things. For example, we have seen that not indulging into the sensuality or sensual pleasures, which is in Pali called Kame Sukam Sukh Lukanu Yogo. And here also, if we want to be, earnest, if we want not to be negligent, the next thing to do is how not to do with the lust of the flesh. Nothing to do with the lust of the flesh. Isn't it? Not pursuing that path of the pleasure that is enjoyed by our senses. Of course, there Buddhism is a religion of joy, and that joy comes through cultivation of the virtues that the Buddha has so emphatically taught. So the Buddhism, when we talk about the pleasure, the Buddha is not for the sensual pleasure, but Buddha will recommend us to experience those sublime joys. Of course, when we talk about, when you think about the meditation progress and all, we have these beautiful descriptions of the mental states like joy, sukha, ekagrata, and they are all very, very sublime, and we can almost say that they are very pleasurable, very pleasant. The word will be pleasant. They are very pleasant mental states. Once we experience them, sometimes we may fall in the trap of them. We might crave to experience them again and again. But the Buddha would caution us not to crave for anything, even the meditative joys and pleasure. But here, particularly, what the Buddha is mentioning here is how not to do with the lust of the flesh, how nothing to do with the lust of the flesh. The vigilant is given to meditation. Now, you see this, I was reflecting on the word appamada. And apamad is also the word for mindfulness or sati, isn't it? And it also means to be alert. It also means to be watchful. It also, has a connotation of the word in Pali called satima, the one who is endowed with sati. So you see, when you look at this word, the vigilant is given to meditation. Now, see, most of the times when we are talking about meditation, we have this sense of being passive, the sense of being, doing nothing. Sometimes, yes, we do nothing in the meditation, and that is the hardest thing to do, not to do anything. But here, the vigilant is given to meditation. It means what is here communicated is very clear, that unless we cultivate that meditation through vigilance, we cannot practice the Buddhist way of life. You see, is what Baba Ambedkar is trying to get it to in this particular section is telling us or teaching us the path of vigilance, apramad. And as I told you, the path of vigilance, apramad, and meditation has a very strong linkage, which is very clear in the next verse. So earnestness leads to where death is not. Now, please pay very clear, very earnest attention to this verse. Verse number 4. Earnestness leads to where death is not. Heedlessness is the way to death. Those who continue in earnestness do not die, but the heedless are as if already dead. So, I'm particularly personally fond of this verse from Dhamma, which goes like this: Appamado amata padang, pamado machuno padang, appamattana miyanti ye pamatta yatamata. Now, see, I'm going to look at this verse, in a very clear manner. So, earnestness leads to where death is not. In Pali, this is called appamado amata padang. So, apramad, or being vigilant, is a path to the deathlessness. Amata means nirvana. Okay. Amata padang means the where death is not. It's beautifully translated here. Where death is not. Amata padang. Appamado amata padang. This is the beauty of Pali. In a very short sentence, one can communicate a lot, isn't it? So you see this word, appamado amata padang. Appamada means being vigilant, being earnest, being bold. And apramada has a connotation of sati, of being watchful, of being mindful, of being alert. So these all things, being watchful, alert, meditative, striving, all leads to what is called the deathlessness or amatapada. So let me again emphasize on the Pali because it's very beautiful. Appamado amatapadam. In English, this is what is included here in the Buddhism of Baba Ambedkar. Very beautiful English translation, I would say. Earnestness leads to where death is not. Appamado amatapadam. Heedlessness is the way to death. Pamado machuno padam. Pamado means heedlessness. Pamado is okay. So heedlessness, what does the heedlessness does? Is a way to death. Machuno. Machuno means death. Amata, mata. So look at these two lines. Appamado amata padam. Pamado machuno padam. Okay, very beautiful contrasting sort of these two sentences of a gatha. Very beautiful. I would say it's very, very the beauty of language, if we can appreciate, in these two, four words, the whole Buddhism is explained. Appamado amata padang, pamado machuno padang. Those who continue in earnestness do not die. Appamattana miyanti. Appamatta means those who are earnest, those who are bold, those who are mindful. Appamattana miyanti. Miyanti means does not die. Appamatta means those who are watchful, they do not die. Okay. Ye pamatta yatamata. Those, ye means those, pamatta means not watchful, heedless, are as if dead already. Ye pamatta yatha mata. Mata means death. See this verse number 4 is so you can look at it as a heart of the Buddhist way of life. This verse number 4 can be understood as the heart of the Buddhist way of life, and that is what the Buddha taught before he left this Saha world. And I'm going to read it again in English, as Baba Ambedkar has beautifully put it here in this particular subpart. Earnestness leads to where death is not. Heedlessness is the way to death. Those who continue in earnestness do not die, but the heedless are as if already dead. Appamado amata padang, pamado machuno padang, appamatta namiyanti, ye pamatta yata mata. Very beautifully, it explains as well as to how the Buddhists should live their lives. Verse number 5, fall not away from your purpose for the sake of another. So for the sake of another, most of the times we are living according to the purpose of other people. Whatever other people, have different purposes in their lives, we live for their purposes. We do not live for what we want. We do not live for what we want to achieve in our lives. We live for others. Fall not away from your purpose for the sake of another, however great this latter may be. When once you have seen your goal, hold it firm and fast. So the path of independence, Buddhism is a path of independence. Buddhism is not about serving the whims and fancies of other people, isn't it? But in a way, Buddhism is about knowing what is the most important for you and cultivating that what is most important for you, for me, for others. So, we have to, in other words, we have to walk on the path for our own sake. We cannot walk the path of the other people We cannot live for their sake, in a sense that to satisfy their purpose in their lives. We have to have our own purpose in our life, and we have to strive hard to attain to that goal. It's very, very clear. When once you have seen your goal, when we know that this is where we have to go, I have to go, then hold it firm and fast. Very simple 3 sentences, but very deep. This verse number 5 looks very simple, but it has a very deeper connection, because most of the times, if we look within our lives, we see that we are living for the purpose of other people. And in the Zen tradition, it said the most important thing for me or for anybody is to find out what is the most important thing. So have we found that most important thing for ourselves? What is the most important thing for ourselves? And once we know that this is the most important thing for me, then as the Buddha taught, when once you have seen your goal, hold it firm and fast. Beautifully put. Verse number 6. Again, the amplification and the continuation of what the Buddha taught in the beginning of this section. Be watchful. Have done with indolence. Travel the true path. Those whoso walks thereon, happy he lives in the world. So the sure path to happiness is prescribed in the verse number 6. Be watchful, be mindful, strive, be vigilant. Apramad. Do not do pramad. And you see, this word pramad also comes in the 5 precepts. In the 5th precepts. Sura mere majja pamada thana. Pamada means to be lazy, isn't it? To be full of sloth, to be full of laziness. So here you see the verse number 6. Be watchful, have done with indolence, travel the true path. Whoso walks thereon, happy he lives in the world. You see, we can see how progressively, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, has introduced these beautiful teachings of the Buddha. And he has taken these beautiful verses from the ocean of the Buddha's teachings. Now the verse number 7, idleness is a disgrace. You see, being lazy is not just, something bad, but what the Buddha called is a disgrace. To be lazy, to be idle is a disgrace. Constant sloth is defilement, is impurity. If we are constantly lazy, if we are constantly full of inaction, if we are constantly full of sloth, we have seen this word when we have studied the Buddha and his Dhamma previously, the sloth and torpor, the 5 hindrances that doesn't let us become enlightened. We have seen that. And this in the Diksha speech, Baba Sahib says that if we are not making efforts, that means our minds are sick, or our bodies might be sick, isn't it? And here in the verse number 7, which I think should be like, or we should bear it like a flag. Each word and each sentence is so important. You see what Baba Sahib Ambedkar has put here. Idleness is a disgrace. To be lazy, to be idle, not doing anything. Indifferentism, as Baba Sahib Ambedkar has put it elsewhere, is a disease. Idleness is a disgrace. Constant sloth is defilement, is impurity. If we are constantly slothful, if we are constantly inactive, if we are constantly lazy, if we are not making efforts, that means that our minds are impure. Now you see this culmination of this Gatha, verse number 7. By strenuous striving and with the help of insight, you should pull out the poisoned arrow of indolence. The indolence or laziness is called the poisonous arrow. isn't it? It's not simply an arrow which hurts us, but it kills us. Maybe slowly, but the laziness is sure to kill us. This particular phrase can be put in our social movements, can be put everywhere. So if we are seeing that something is decaying, something is dying, something is getting struck somewhere, which means that it is struck by the poisonous arrow of indolence, by inactivity. So how do we get rid of this poisonous arrow? Strenuous striving, vigilance, apramad is so important. Apramad is so important. Continuously striving is so important. But that is not enough. What is also needed is insight. And insight, as we know, is to be able to see the nature of everything as it is. The nature of body as being impure, not clean. The nature of Vedana as being producing to leading to suffering. The nature of mind is, impermanent, and the nature of anything else, everything else in the world is emptiness. So these four qualities of what we experience in terms of the kaya, vedana, chitta, and dhamma, we have to understand the characteristic of it, and that's how we can uproot the poisoned arrow of indolence. So very powerful sentences here. Idleness is a disgrace. Constant sloth is defilement. By strenuous striving and with the help of insight, you should pull out the poisoned arrow of indolence. Isn't it? If we simply look at Baba Sahib's life, and equate this particular section, his life was, bold. His life was always earnest. He was always trying to, end the suffering. He was always trying to do something, with of course, with his prajna, backed by his prajna. He was not doing anything at random. But you see the implication of this verse number 7. Idleness is a disgrace. Constant sloth is defilement. By strenuous striving and with the help of insight, you should pull out the poisoned arrow of indolence. And the verse number 8 goes like this. Again, the on the same theme, but amplified further. Give not yourself unto negligence. Have not to do with the lust of flesh. We have seen this verse previously. The vigilant, the given to meditation, these attain an overflowing happiness. You see, if we want happiness, as Baba Ambedkar says that, Nibbana is the happiness, and Nibbana is absence of raga, dosa, and moha. So when we cultivate the opposite of raga, dosa, and moha, we experience happiness. We experience joy, isn't it? So verse number 8 is just this same theme that Baba Ambedkar has been discussing in this particular subpart. And the final words, the verse number 9, it goes like this. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to Dhamma, his glory will increase. So we all want good name and name. We all want glory. We want to be recognized. To be recognized is a basic human need, isn't it? It's not. If we are not full of pride, it's a bad mental state. But to be recognized as a human being by other human being is what a human being, a healthy human being needs. To be recognized by other human being as a human being. And therefore, if we look at this verse number 9, if an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrains himself and lives according to Dhamma, his glory will increase. So this is what is the culmination of this subpart 9. And before I open up for your comments or any observations, I'm going to read it through. So you pay very clear attention to what I'm reading now, because it brings all these disparate discussions that I was discussing now into a single frame, and very, very easy to understand. So verse number 1, when vigilant, the wise man puts from him negligence Ascending the tower of wisdom, he looks down, free from sorrow, upon the sorrow-laden race of mankind. As from a mountain top, the wise man looks upon the fools in the valley. Vigilant among the negligent, awake among those asleep. As a fleet courser leaves behind a sorry nag, so go the wise. Give not yourself unto negligence. Have not to do with the lust of the flesh. The vigilant is given to meditation. Earnestness leads to where death is not. Heedlessness is the way to death. Those who continue in earnestness do not die, but the heedless are as if already dead. Fall not away from the purpose for the sake of another, however great this latter may be. When once you have seen your goal, hold it firm and fast. Be watchful, have done with indolence. Travel the true path. Those walks thereon, happy he lives in the world. Idleness is a disgrace. Constant sloth is defilement. By strenuous striving and with the help of insight, you should pull out the poisoned arrow of indolence. Give not yourself unto negligence. Have not to do with the lust of the flesh. The vigilant, the given to meditation, these attain an overflowing happiness. If an earnest person has roused himself, if he is not forgetful, if his deeds are pure, if he acts with consideration, if he restrain himself and lives according to Dhamma, his glory will increase. So this ends the subpart 9 of the book of the part 3 of the book 4. And I stop here, and let's open up the class for any comments or anything that any of you would like to share.
I think all the verses teach us to follow the eightfold path. Pradnya, Shil, Samadhi means Samadhi meditation. We must do meditation and remove the greed, lust, and laziness, hatred, all the 5 enemies, and then we should gain pradnya, and pradnya we should we will have insight and insight about the real truth, impermanence, everything. We will get pradnya, and the 5 hindrances will be removed by meditation.
Good.
And following Shil, Samadhi, Pradnya.
Good. Very good, Alkatai. Very, very good. Thank you so much. Any other comment, or anybody would like to say anything? Now, see, in this part 9, so far we have covered in the Buddhist way of life. They are not, they look, they are very different from each other, and they emphasize different aspects of the Buddha's teachings. And therefore, this holistic Buddhist life. What is the Buddhist way of life? The holistic, in total, how do we understand the Buddhist way of life in terms of mind, in terms of thoughtfulness, in terms of boldness, in terms of earnestness, in terms of wisdom, in terms of justice, in terms of good company, in terms of conquering ourselves, in terms of how we end our enmities, in terms of how we remove our impurities, how we do away with craving and lust, how do we do away with evil. All this range of virtues, or the Buddha's teachings have been covered so beautifully here. Because you see, this one of the things in any teaching is, how do we classify something in a way that can be communicated to people very easily. Now, all that which Baba Ambedkar has categorized here, it with an approach to make us understand how we can bring Buddhism in our lives. And this sort of, I think, categorization as Baba Ambedkar has done here and also elsewhere is I think very important for us to understand, like the Dhamma, Sadhamma, and Adhamma, like this sort of a classification. Now here in this, and we are again going to study 1, 2, 3, 4 of these subsections, which I know that they are going to be of great importance to for all of us to understand how we can live the Buddhist way of life. So should we?
Purity of self.
Yes, Alka madam.
Yeah. Self, purity of self.
Yes.
Remove all defilement.
Yes.
And then gain insight, prajna.
Yes.
That
Very,
is the main goal of this exercise.
very true. Very true.
Hello.
So, all right, I think Manoj Kumar ji.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Today's class is very joyful and we learn a lot of things.
Sir.
Watchfulness, importance of the watchfulness. It is very important to be watchful for every human being.
Yes.
For being a good person, for living life watchfully is very important, I think.
Yes.
And one more thing you taught today is, if you are not doing any improvement or anything, it is equivalent to death.
Yes.
That is very important. Nowadays we are teaching about the personality development and human value development. So this Buddha and his Dhamma certainly makes our whole personality change by learning all these things. Okay. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Manoj bhai. Welcome.
Earnestness is exactly what? Earnestness exactly what? Earnestness
Is appamad.
where death is not.
Is appamada.
Okay.
Striving with diligence. Okay, the word is striving with diligence.
May I?
Yes, please.
Jai Bhim, sir. Today's class a little bit hard to digest me, and if you forced me to think deeply, I'm thinking that what are the things are there which are holding back man, and how to conquer on those things for self emancipation. So I'm really thankful to you and all of you, Guru because we never think about these aspects, and we just consciously or unconsciously we are neglecting these things, and spending our important time of our life, and pushing ourselves in the deep in the deep valley, I would say. So we should seriously think upon it and improve ourselves and visualize what is good and what is bad for us.
Yes. Very true, Sukhdevji, because that's why I would particularly like to emphasize reading that is Dhamma, time and again. Whenever we get time, we should find go through that is Dhamma, read it again and again. That's very okay. So
same in verse number 1. That Lord.
Right.
Jai sir.
Rahul, yes.
This 9 means watchfulness and apramad and heedfulness.
Yes.
It is all just Madam said, Alka Madam said that is all our shield. That is all coming in shield means
Yes.
we have to 5 precept in that. What we have 5 precept we have to follow. That all are is coming that in 9 number section. Correct, no? That apramad means
Yes, you see, this shield has also many levels in a sense of, restraining at the level of the senses is called the Indriya Savar shield. So, shield doesn't mean a list of the 5 commandments. It also means to practice in a sense of at the sense doors, because that's where we are likely to break the shield. So, if we want to avoid breaking the precepts, we have to be watchful at the sense doors, at the eye, at the door of eye, ear, nose, tongue, skin, and that all this, and of course mind. So this mindfulness of our sensual doors has a deep connotation with practicing the Shila, and therefore, as you said, this to be watchful of our Indriya is an aspect of that, and it's a very important aspect of that. So
do not
yes.
extend. Do not go extend what we have to do in apamad only.
Yes. So you see this whole this whole path, Shila, Samadhi, and Pradnya, it's indivisible. We cannot separate one from another,
That's true, yeah.
isn't it? We cannot separate Shila from Samadhi, Samadhi from Pradnya, Pradnya from Shila. Like, it's just as I told you, it's a way of categorizing the Buddha's teaching so that it can be taught to us. So it's like, this section is like, that's why I was remarking on Baba Sahib's great ability to divide the teachings of the Buddha in such a way as to make us understand comprehensively as to how we should have this, we live our lives, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Actually, we are reading the book, but what the way of you are teaching, no, it's really understanding.
So thank
Thank
you,
you so
sir.
much.
I am happy to hear that.
Sir, Jai Bhim, sir.
Jai Bhim, Samiksha ma'am.
Yes, sir. Today's class I found it a little bit difficult to understand,
Yes.
but I will again go through it and maybe I'll get more insights. But for now, what I understood to be vigilant is we have to continuously make efforts, right?
Yes.
So when we make efforts, like when we do hand in hand, like the meditation also and read Dhamma also, then automatically we become watchful, like we become vigilant.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to make efforts for to be watchful.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing I understood so far. Thank you, sir,
Good understanding.
for
Good
this
understanding.
explanation.
Okay, then we will stop here and we will meet in the next class. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Jai Bhim, sir.
Jai Bhim all.